Good morning, everyone. This is Shamsher Diwan from ICRA Ratings and Research. I have a presentation on the electric bus segment by ICRA. I would like to take you through that presentation before we start our session on today's discussion agenda. Now, in today's presentation, I intend to give an overview of the electric bus market, starting with the global scenario and how India is actually electrifying its bus fleet. I'll also delve into some of the details on the opportunities, risk, and some of the mitigating factors actually, which are ahead of us in the public-private partnership model or operations, or as it's known as the gross contract model. Which is now emerging as a favorable route to bring in electric buses by state transport undertakings in India. I'll finally conclude my presentation with ICRA's outlook on the electric bus segment. Now, let us first start with the global landscape. It is now a well-accepted fact that the world is at a cusp of mobility revolution, moving towards automobiles which are shared, connected, mission. Now, given that controlling pollutions is far bigger challenge in cities globally, electrification of public transport has been one of the levers in the hands of governments to control emissions as well as meet their stated climate goals. However, the penetration levels globally remain quite low, except for those in China, which started its EV journey well in advance. Nevertheless, we believe that a secular pickup is now visible across other key markets as well, particularly in Europe, US, and even now in India. And it is expected that there is going to be a further increase given the growing emphasis on moving towards zero emission and carbon neutrality. Now, in the next section, I'll touch upon the evolving e-bus segment in India, including various measures which have been put in place to support the overall adoption. To encourage EV adoption in India, the government over the past few years has introduced multiple programs. Among all, the Scheme for Faster Adoption and Manufacturing of Electric Buses, or also known as FAME, has been the flagship program. The scheme identified public transport and commercial fleet segments as its initial drivers of electrification in India. Under the second phase of the scheme, an outlay of 10,000 crores is planned over a 5-year period to improve EV adoption. Additionally, other initiatives like the smart city projects, state EV policies announced by many states have also outlined the electric commercial vehicle as a key objective. Considering the significant cost differential between conventional vehicles and EVs, the government offer capital subsidies to the tune of 35 lakhs to 55 lakhs per bus, which account for almost 40% of the initial bus cost in order to bridge the upfront cost differential. Out of the total outlay of 10,000 crores for FAME 2, nearly 35% is actually earmarked for e-buses alone. Now, as I said earlier, apart from central government, many state governments in India have also recently announced their own EV policies. While the focus of these policies is primarily towards electric two-wheelers and electric three-wheelers, some of the states have also announced very specific targets for the adoption of e-buses. Well, many of these state policies do not offer any additional capital subsidy per se, but they have offered relaxation such as lower or exemption towards registration fees, road taxes, preferential electricity tariffs, for EV charging, etc. Now, given these measures, the penetration of e-buses in India is gradually picking up. From approximately 400 units sold in FY21, in the first 5 months, the total e-buses which were sold in India were about 350 to 400 units. Nevertheless, there is a significant ground to be covered even with the subsidy schemes in place. Now, under FAME 2, more than 2.5 years post its implementation, only approximately 16% of the sanctioned buses have actually been deployed, and almost half of them are yet to be tendered. While this might partially be on account of the impact of COVID-19 and the related disruptions, the scheme has been recently been extended by 2 years. The country would need to now move quickly to emerge as a reasonable player in the overall e-bus market globally. Now I'll talk about the operating model that is gaining preference and ICRA's overall view on the operating economics, associated risk, and the mitigation strategies which are being adopted by companies. Now, broadly speaking, there are two main operating models that exist for procurement of buses by state transport undertakings in India. First is the outright purchase model, wherein the SRTUs directly purchase the buses from the OEM and then operate them. Second is the gross contract model, wherein a third party, usually a private sector entity, purchases these buses and operates them on behalf of the SRTUs for a defined period. Now, the SRTUs in turn pay a charge on a per kilometer basis to such operators for the distance which is covered, and they are responsible for the revenue collection. The ownership, the maintenance, and the responsibility for buses actually rest with the operator. This model has been gaining popularity, especially during FAME 2, as subsidies are only limited to e-buses which are procured through this route. The benefit for SRTUs is that they do not have to incur the significant upfront capital cost, which is associated with onboarding an electric bus. Secondly, the SRTUs do not even have to bear the technology risk associated with new age products. On the other hand, the operators do not have to bear the traffic risk, and they get paid on an almost annuity model if the buses are made available. Now let us look at the operating economics of e-bus versus a conventional bus. Now, as you can see on the slide, while the upfront cost for e-buses is considerably higher than that for diesel or CNG counterparts, what makes e-buses viable is the significantly low running cost, with per kilometer fuel cost about 3 to 5 times lower than the conventional diesel buses or CNG buses. The operational savings are actually pretty significant when it comes to e-buses. Furthermore, with diesel prices steadily inching upwards on one side, states have been offering subsidized electricity tariffs for charging EVs on the other hand, and the gap in operating costs between the two is only widening. In terms of the total cost of ownership as well, electric buses compare favorably with the conventional buses. Although operating cost gets pushed upwards by the battery replacement cost and the requirement for on-site support for e-buses, overall it remains still favorable. Although capital costs are currently higher, the subsidies offered under FAME scheme is helping to address the same to a large extent. The major project cost element for these GCC projects is actually the bus cost, which is approximately 80% of the total project cost. Capital subsidies fund a large part of these, ranging anywhere between 25% to 45% of the total bus, depending upon the type of bus which is being inducted. And accordingly, the debt and the equity component are lower, thereby supporting the viability of the projects. This would be contrast to other infrastructure projects in India, which generally have much higher debt burden. Now, in terms of the operating economics for bus operator, what we have seen so far is that operating margins typically would pan out anywhere between 35 to 40% to accommodate for the high capital cost. Now here, what the operators are trying to do is to minimize the variability in their cash flows and entering into fixed price or back-to-back arrangements with either the OEMs or the service providers. Now, this is being done by locking in operating cost elements such as the annual maintenance, employee salaries, etc. Even the electricity cost is either a pass-through to the SRTUs or taken care when per kilometer revenues are reset at a defined frequency. Overall, the return and coverage indicators for these projects are expected to be comfortable once they achieve stable operations. Now, on this slide and the next one, I have tried to outline some of the key risks for these projects from a SPV standpoint and some risk mitigation measures which are being employed. Now, obviously, the model is in nascent stage and would evolve over time. Like any other project, these are also exposed to the risk of time and cost overruns. Fixed price contracts with the OEM for buses reduce risk of cost overrun significantly, as bus costs account for approximately 80% of the total project cost. Also, having back-to-back arrangements for recovering any penalties for late bus delivery is another mitigant. Some SPV promoters, maybe OEMs or even stronger third parties, even provide undertakings to fund cost overruns, thereby protecting the credit profile of the projects. The other risk that can impact project execution is the ability to achieve financial closure, especially for recently set up SPVs. Here, having some stronger promoter backing with adequate capability to bring in necessary equity is paramount. Projects where promoters have shown track record of timely equity infusion with sanctioned debt facilities are viewed favorably from a credit standpoint. Another big element is the subsidy, which is to be received in 3 tranches. First 20% while signing the agreement, the second 40% on delivery of the buses, and the balance 40% 6 months after achieving commercial operations. While the track record of timely subsidy is yet to be established, what has been observed for most projects under execution is that the first tranche has been released by the government in a fairly timely manner. The risk on geopolitical developments, especially with the availability of key components like batteries coming from foreign players, is another event risk that remains. But force majeure conditions in concession agreements typically would cover for such eventualities in our view. Now, in terms of the risk during the operation phase, the risk that the bus is not available as per requirements is, in our view, the key factor, which can result in revenue loss or even some kind of penalties for the SPV from the SRTU. So what the SPVs are doing to mitigate this is by having back-to-back arrangements with the OEM, such that any penalties for bus underperformance are recovered from the OEM. Additionally, spare buses are also being procured as part of the project plan in order to act as a buffer. The other key operational risk is the battery cost and its performance, which may vary from what is really envisaged initially. Now, with batteries to be replaced every 5 to 6 years typically, this can impact cost if prices move upwards from what is envisaged. So some SPVs are even locking in the battery prices upfront for reducing the variability in their maintenance cost, and fixed price AMCs are also being used as a tool. The revenue risk in general is offset by the take or pay nature of the contracts. Nevertheless, the rate at which the contracts are being awarded vis-a-vis the actual cost of ownership is something which is very critical to monitor. The other key risk during the operation phase is the counterparty risk in all such projects. However, availability of an escrow mechanism with 2 to 3 months of revenues payable mandated by an agreement provides some comfort. Additionally, any state mechanism in place, such as viability gap funding or any funds being earmarked for the purpose of running EVs, will also offer some kind of a comfort to the counterparty risk which exists in such projects. Now, in the last section, I'll cover ICRA's outlook for the e-bus segment in India. Among the various automotive segments, we believe that buses are expected to be among those that would witness faster electrification, especially for intra-city operations. While limited charging infrastructure, range anxiety, and high capital cost have been some of the key bottlenecks in the passenger car segment, they are less of a concern in case of buses. As we already saw, the TCO is also actually very favorable. Further, charging infrastructure for buses is likely to be localized at the depots. Additionally, the current range is well within the typical daily running, thereby supporting overnight charging and addressing the range anxiety as well. Accordingly, the e-bus segment is expected to witness increased penetration over the near to medium term. And at ICRA, we believe that about 8 to 10% of total buses will become electric by FY 2025. While the FAME-2 scheme and associated subsidies would support penetration in the initial years, expectations are that capital costs would gradually come down with reduction in battery prices and localization. To sum up, while China remains #1 in terms of EVs and e-bus adoption, other geographies like India have also started to play a catch-up. Multiple policies and schemes have introduced in India, as well as incentivized the demand for EVs. FAME has been the flagship policy, and its second phase, which is ongoing, offers significant capital subsidy through the PPP model for operations. Accordingly, this model is witnessing increased adoption over the past couple of years. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.